Conventional fantasy wisdom suggests that the best rulers are those who never seek power. The story follows a predictable path: a king who lives in the dirt, who breaks bread with starving beggars, and who understands the suffering of his people will deliver an era of lasting peace. But the archives of the Citadel hide a different, blood-soaked reality. The most compassionate monarch to ever sit the Iron Throne ended his reign by burning his closest friends, his family, and himself in a desperate sorcerous inferno. To understand how this happened, we have to look at the sweeping trajectory of two men: Sir Duncan the Tall, a massive, uneducated orphan from the slums of Flea Bottom, and his squire, Egg, the boy who was secretly Prince Aegon Targaryen. Their story is a brilliant, intimate narrative. George R.R. Martin mapped out their entire lives across a dozen planned novellas, taking them from wandering dirt roads as lowly hedge knights to the peak of royal authority. Yet destiny has a wicked sense of humor. The boy who spent his youth learning the true meaning of chivalry from a peasant grew up to engineer a horrific atrocity against his own bloodline. Egg, the fourth son of a fourth son, was never meant to rule. They called him Aegon the Unlikely. But after a brutal plague and a series of accidents wiped out the succession line, the Great Council placed the crown upon his head. Once in power, King Aegon passed sweeping laws granting smallfolk legal protections they had never seen. The High Lords of Westeros despised him for it, triggering a wave of open rebellion and defiance against his royal decrees. Egg realized a grim political reality. Without the absolute, terrifying threat of living dragons, the Lords of Westeros would never respect a king who favored the peasants. He needed fire made flesh. This raises a very deeply psychological question. Was King Aegon's sudden obsession with hatching dragons a symptom of hereditary madness, or was it a cold, calculated necessity to force the lords to accept a fairer world? Let me know your theory in the comments. If it was a calculated choice, the tragic irony is absolute. Aegon's pure compassion and desire to protect the vulnerable directly forced him into an esoteric, incredibly dangerous corner. In the year 259 AC, King Aegon gathered his closest family, his pyromancers, and his Lord Commander, Sir Duncan, to the palace of Summerhall. To this fateful ritual, he brought 7 petrified dragon eggs, caches of volatile wildfire, and ancient scrolls detailing blood magic. We do not know exactly what went wrong with the ritual, but the result was catastrophic. The palace instantly erupted into an inescapable inferno of unnatural fire, burning the king and his eldest son alive. Amidst the collapsing masonry, Sir Duncan the Tall performed his final act of true chivalry. Using his massive strength, Dunk charged into the heart of the flames to shield and rescue the pregnant Princess Rhaella. Dunk perished in the fire, burning alongside the boy he had raised. But outside, beneath the bleeding sky and the smoke of Summerhall, Rhaella survived just long enough to give birth to a son named Rhaegar Targaryen. Rhaegar would eventually trigger the events of the main series. Without Dunk burning to death to pull Rhaella from that inferno, Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen would never have existed. His sacrifice was a required anchor for the future of the realm. Summerhall's devastation isn't confined to the lore. There is a very real, growing possibility that we may never actually see this story reach its climax on the page. The tragedy has bled out of the book and into reality. For over a decade, George R.R. Martin has been trapped in a creative winter, stuck at roughly 1,100 manuscript pages, while rewriting the same chapters as he struggles beneath the weight of his own overgrown plotlines. While the author remains creatively paralyzed, the television universe continues a relentless expansion, pumping out spin-offs and greenlighting new adaptations of his work. Martin recently revealed that his relationship with House of the Dragon showrunner Ryan Condal is abysmal. He is watching the Hollywood machine actively alter his legacy, frequently ignoring his notes and warnings. Just as King Aegon watched his rebellious lords defy his edicts and strip away his authority, the creator of Westeros is watching himself lose control of his own literary universe. This disconnect leads to a chilling question. When asked what happens to the canonical ending of Dunk and Egg if he passes away before finishing the books, Martin gave an absolute answer. If he dies, the story simply dies with him. No other modern fantasy author will be legally permitted to finish his life's work. To explain his rigid stance, Martin points to the past, specifically referencing a famous piece of classic literature by Charles Dickens that remains perpetually unsolved. He compared his own sprawling epic to Dickens' final unfinished novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, a story where the true ending was buried alongside its author. If Martin cannot conquer his writer's block and finish the journey to Summerhall, the greatest fantasy epic of our generation is legally doomed to become a permanent ghost story. If you want to survive the long night and uncover more secrets hidden within Westeros, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it with your fellow lords and ladies. Our watch is far from over. The trauma born from the ashes of Summerhall poisoned the next generation, while the boy born in the smoke, Rhaegar, became obsessed with prophecy. His father, King Aerys II, inherited the madness of the fire. Soon, the Royal Shakespeare Company will take to the stage to unveil this exact dark chapter, dramatizing the great tourney at Harrenhal and the descent of the Mad King. It leaves us with a horrific question. What dark secrets did Aerys uncover in the charred ruins of his family that drove his obsession with burning his own kingdom? Aegon's peaceful legacy died in the smoke of Summerhall, replaced by a fiery nightmare that eventually razed the entire realm.